This is what we're going for today, the temp fade. A temp fade is a very low fade that is faded only around your ears or right below your temples. The rest of the haircut is kept a little bit longer. So this is what we were starting with, and I'll show you every step of the way on how we were able to achieve the temp fade and make it even on both sides, because that is the most important part of a temp fade, is that it looks similar on both sides. Otherwise, it's going to look like a crooked fade. It's not going to look even, and it's not going to look right. So with a number 6 guard, he is feeding the hair through the guard, and he's doing it in a way where he flicks it off. This is going to blend it perfectly and make it easier. Next up is clipper over comb. He's going to be using his clipper and his comb, and he's going to be using that in a way that's going to be fading from where he cut with the number 6 to the sides. This is a very effective way to cut hair. It blends it very nice, especially if the hair is straight. And it's a really good option for people who don't really have a good amount of scissor work practice in, and they're not really sure how to blend this hair. This is a good option for you. You're going to have your hands steady, but after a little bit of practice, you'll be able to do this no problem. You're going to want to keep the comb at 45 degrees and only cut off what is sticking out of the comb. Next up, he has a number 8 guard, and he's using this just to blend a little bit of what he's already cut on the sides. He's making sure that he does not go very in with it and cut too far into the head. He's making sure that he flips it out a little bit so that he doesn't take too much off. Coming down now to the half, he just doesn't have any guard on there, and the lever's all the way open, and this is where he's starting his fade. This is a very low fade. It's called a temp fade because you really only fade a little bit below the temples. Some people call this a blowout. It doesn't really matter what you call it. You just have to make sure that you have a good picture for your barber so they know exactly what you're talking about. You have to make sure the foundation's really good, that there's no spare hairs anywhere. That way it's going to be a nice, clean looking fade. The most important part of doing this type of haircut is making sure that it's even on the other side. So he's looking in the mirror to see if he has done the other side at the same point. That is a very good way to make sure that you're aligned and that it is not going to be crooked. Coming in with the 1 guard, he's going to come in and he's going to blend out what he just did a little bit. He did a little bit of the half, so he's coming in with the 1 guard open, and then he closes it and just kind of blends it. He then goes to the other side and does the exact same thing. It's very important that you do the exact same thing on both sides so that the fade is even on both sides. To blur out between the half and the 1, he's using a little bit of the half guard. With the number 2, he's going to be going in and he's going to be removing a little bit of bulk that was made a little bit above the 1. He's flicking it. He's not going very deep with this guard, and he's just really being gentle with it, barely going up so that he doesn't stretch the fade too high. The 1.5 guard is going to come in between that 2 and the 1, and he's primarily using the edges of that guard. This is a really good guard to blend with. With the 3 guard, he's getting a little bit of that bulk out and just flicking it as he goes, making sure that he does the same on both sides. Now that the sides are faded, he's going to taper the neckline. He's going to be using a half, so he has no guard with the levers all the way open, and he's going to be doing this so that he doesn't cut him with the 0, making sure he looks down. The 3 guard, he's just going to get some of this bulk down that happened in between his larger guard and the half that he just started tapering the neckline with. After that 3 guard, he has a 1 guard, and he is slowly flicking it out and just blending. Really, the main idea for blending any type of haircut, any type of fade, is just going over it repeatedly. You can try different guards, you can go back and forth between the 3 to the 2 to the 1, whatever you have to do to get it to be blurred, to be blended. It's okay to go back, use the same guard that you used a minute ago. You cannot go wrong with switching guards. So he's going from the 4 guard down to a 3 guard, down to a 1.5 guard again. So he noticed there was still a little bit of a line in between the top of his hair and what he's cut, so he's going back in with a little bit more of clipper over comb to blend that in. It's very easy to take a little bit off with clipper over comb, so you don't have to do too much. Next up is the thinning shears, texture shears, and he's going to be using this to blend the sides as well. His hair, the client's hair, is very thick and it is helping it to lay down properly. He's now going in and he's reverse blending it. That's just taking off very little. He's going the opposite direction that he did before, and it's just taking a very little amount off and blending it nicely. He's going to be using the trimmers and he's going to be making that line nice and crisp around his neckline and around his ears and a little bit near his temples. Alex is using very little pressure. He's pretty much tapping the liners and using the outside corner to make sure that he doesn't cut in too much. He's also going to be using very short strokes as he comes around the temples, just so he doesn't dig in too much. People have very sensitive skin on their neck and you have to be very careful to not nick them here. This is a sensitive area that can get irritated very easy. You're always going to want to have the trimmers facing up when you're coming up the neckline so that you don't risk injury to the client. So now that the sides are done, he's coming in a little bit with some texture shears just to kind of thin it out, texture the top a little bit. The top had not been cut in a really long time. It had grown out from a short buzz, so it's always good to clean up the very ends a little bit. Now after doing this, he noticed that the sides were a little bit bulky, so he came back in to kind of bring it down a little bit, and that's okay too. You can always adjust things. We're putting a little bit of texture powder in here to give him a little bit of texture so that he looks nice and kind of messy look on top. He's leaving it longer. He likes the messy, longer look, so this looked really great on him. So we have the before and we have the after, and he looks so handsome. I really like how this turned out. What do you think?